Okay, well, I will call this meeting to order. The time is 11:02 a.m. This meeting is being recorded by the Greenfield Unhoused Community Ad Hoc Committee. Any other persons present or doing the same, you must notify me at this time.
Waiting room. I'm gonna close this door.
Thank you, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. So, I think I missed, I think, but I need to tell you who I am.
Yes, absolutely. So first we'll do a roll call and then we will go into that. So Sarah Brown, present. Christy Allen, not present yet. Larry Thomas.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Also, if folks don't mind, I always forget this, but I'll just say I'm the city council appointed by the council president on this meeting. And if folks want to also introduce their. Okay, perfect. Yay. Hi. Thank you. Great. So we're just about doing roll call and saying what you're doing, why you're here on this committee. So Larry Thomas.
Yeah, here.
Ms. McGovern.
I'm here. And I was appointed by the city council here.
Robin.
Hi, I'm here. I'm the EMT in Jason.
Pamela Goodwin.
I'm here. I was appointed by the mayor for the ad hoc. I also help at the warming center.
Bruce Smith.
Hello, Greenfield Police Downtown Officer.
And we are also joined by two guests. If you all want to introduce yourselves as well.
Okay, Wissy Rohrabacher and a community member.
I'm Amy Kaling. I'm the Director of the Community and Economic Development Department for the City of Greenfield.
Awesome.
And Pocky Wieland, I'm on the Human Rights Commission, and this year our emphasis on homelessness and eradicating.
Thank you. Now we'll first take public comment if anyone would like to share. And is there any public comment at this time? Thanks for joining us, Stephanie and Councilor Perry.
Are you talking loud enough for them to hear? Because last time they wanted public comment as we were adjourning, so I just wanted to be sure.
Okay, we're good on that. So our agenda today, let me pull that up honestly, but essentially we will hear from our guests, which are Amy and Wissy, and then Pocky, you were under the outreach steps from last time, but so I didn't officially add you as a guest, but I think it makes sense for you to be speaking up during the meeting as well. So it would be great. Did Amy or Wissy, do you want to go? First?
Yeah, let me. Amy, is it okay if I go?
I'm happy to let Wisty go first.
Okay. So when I heard about this committee and about Sarah doing this, I sent Sarah a letter. It was a document really that I had done up several years ago. And it was around the time of the encampment, the 10th encampment on the Common. And at that point, I had been gardening at Energy Park every week. And that was the point when a lot of unhoused people used Energy Park for sleeping and just for gathering underneath the pavilion. And so because my partner and I were over there every week, we got to know a lot of those folks really well. And even a lot of those folks started helping us garden, told us a lot of personal stories. And so I got to know people, names, birth dates, happy birthday, all that. A few years later, I was in charge of exploring landscaping for the new library. And part of what came up was people who were with the library saying, we want to serve the whole community. And I said, do you mean the whole community? And they said, yes. And I said, the whole community means the whole community, including the unhoused people. So one of the things that I would do is be at Energy Park and then say, the people at the library really would like you to be part of the public who comes to the library. And so is there anything you would particularly like? What would you see that could help you feel more comfortable? And people, they would talk about it. One of the results, in fact, is that there's a tiny library over at NEG Park. And it's because they said, numerous people said, we love books. We really want books. And they did indicate, that they needed some water and that they wanted to use the library that way, but that they felt really good even being asked about it. All right, so that really opened the door for me for later when Mary McClintock had asked if I would interview people. And it was around again, the 10th time on the Common. So I did, I was able to interview, I bet it amounted to 20 or more people because I was able to go and talk with people who I already knew. And I was very able to even be able to say, some people out in the community think this about you. Is that so? Like one of the things is you just don't want to work. And people were great at responding. And people were telling me things. One of the things that I will never forget, one of the people said, several of them, I would love to go to the community college. And I would love to have a job. But will you look at me? I'm filthy dirty and I smell. I cannot sit in a classroom and smell like this. I just can't. I feel bad about it and I can't do it. So I was able to hear things like that. I was able to hear things like one of the reasons that we really like to hang out here at Energy Park is we can plug in our laptops, our phones. So, there was one couple that was trying to develop a jewelry business. They were making their own jewelry and they were trying to sell it online and they needed to have that electricity. So it was like one of the considerations at the time was, would it be possible to have a tent area out at the fairgrounds? So I asked, and they said, no, there's not electricity there. We're removed from Main Street. We're removed from our community. When we're here, we're closer to our community. We're closer to where there are some stores. We're closer to where, when food is offered, it's offered very close. So really, this is where we could be. If we were out there, we would be totally removed. So anyway, it really made me think so hard. And so let me tell you, my partner and I did stop working at Energy Park. And one of the reasons is because of the people who were defecating. They were trampling our flowers when they would go back in to defecate right where we were trying to weed. And a lot of the people who were hanging out there were horribly embarrassed by that fact and extremely apologetic. And yet it continued. So one of the issues that for me was so crystal clear is needing some places for bodily needs.
Yeah.
And so for going to the bathroom, for cleaning your hands, for washing your face, for cleaning up. Another point had to do with, we saw fights and some where the police had to be called. Almost always the fights had to do with somebody messing around with somebody else's belongings. And belongings were in a plastic bag. That was it. Usually a big black plastic bag. People needed a safe place to put their belongings. So it was secure, so nobody could mess with it. So it wasn't going to be rained on. That seemed like a huge need. So some of the things that were causing problems in my mind were based on needs, and they were based on pretty darn basic needs. Now, do I know how to solve those? I really don't. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that those very basic needs were, they were part of what separated that population from everybody else. One of the things that used to fascinate us, had to do with, like we would be talking with somebody and having a conversation just like this. people would be talking to us about how they used to do landscaping, just a pleasant conversation, enjoying one another. And all of a sudden it would be, well, I'm going to go join my buddies. And they'd turn around, "You goddamn let it." It's like, it went from this real civil, enjoyable thing to this real hostile thing. And to something that then turns off the rest of the public and shines very poorly on the population. So I have 4 points of contact with this population. One of them is right now, I'm responsible for the garden in front of Mesa Verde. It's a big garden, and I was helpful in getting that whole park created. All right, so I'm over there now during gardening season, last year during gardening season, the year before during gardening season, once a week. And we start like at 8 or 9, depending on the temperature. And the community has moved up on Main Street. And the community, part of what's difficult is the extent of the noise. And I would say the aggression of the comments. And the comments themselves start feeling aggressive. So I feel really supportive and would like to be helpful of the community. My partner and I help at the warming center, in the winter, and we do lots of stuff like that. And yet I feel I get so tired at 8:30 or 9, hearing this music blasting, just hostile kind of talk. Simultaneously, this real gentle part, the people who hang out there, they tend to like this garden. And they try to protect that garden. They try to protect it from dogs who are going in. They try to protect it from people. It's funny because they'll protect that garden area from trash being thrown in there. And yet there's all kinds of trash up by Main Street. So, so there's, so part of my conflict, part of my interest, I want to say one other thing about me personally. I was a teacher for decades, and the last 18 years, I was asked to start, this was in Fayetteville, Arkansas, to start a program, an alternative program for really smart kids who were alternative kids, and they were dropping out, but they also were kids who, like the other teachers, didn't want to deal with at all. And the program was tremendously successful. The kids were successful as adults. So I've dealt with people who have different kind of behaviors, who just are not supposedly acceptable in a lot of environments, but who are fine folks. All right, so somehow it seems to me that the importance of being able to have more communication between, like when Judy and I were hanging out so much at Energy Park, we could just talk all the time with those folks. We got along all the time. It was wonderful. I still didn't want them pooping over there where I was working. But I think that more could be worked out. And I think that there would be the importance of including that community. That community was so strong about the people on the one side of the wrought iron fence around Energy Park. That was them. And they would say, we have addiction problems, and they're with alcohol and da-da-da. The people on the other side of that fence have much more serious addiction problems, and they're not welcome in here. They had very strict laws. And then Judy and I, at one point, and it was after I had interviewed people, I don't know if you remember, but and tell me if I'm talking too long. The station was all filled with graffiti, a lot of nasty comments and pictures and stuff. And the folks who hung out there knew that that wasn't very appreciated, and they really loved the Thursday night music time. So anyway, Judy and I brought over cleaning supplies, buckets, mops, blah, 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 blah. And they totally cleaned up that whole area. We brought over rakes. They helped clean up the weeds and all that. Okay, so then all of a sudden, this one Maine woman, and I forget her name, she wasn't there anymore. And I was saying, well, so I forget her name. Where is so-and-so? And finally, somebody said to me, Wisty, you knew her when she had her addiction under control. And she lost it and we had to kick her out. And she was the leader of doing those kinds of things.
Cleaning.
The cleaning,
Yeah.
just the care.
Yeah,
And the kindness. I think she helped inspire the kindness between one another. And then once she wasn't there, that was the end.
A leader.
So in my mind, there definitely is a way, and it would be important to find things to be able to share together, not just talking, but generally what I see is when there is an activity, when people are working together, it's so much easier to talk. It's so much easier to get to know one another. It's so much easier to be real equals on stuff. There's more I could say, but that's quite enough.
Thank you so much.
Thank
That's
you.
great. I'm wondering, so we have a waiting room person. I'm wondering, do we want to do questions now or hear from Amy first maybe, and then we can do questions on both if that works for folks? Just unless there's any.
I have
Any questions?
just one quick question, maybe this we should discuss further. But are there toilets? Are there anywhere in downtown?
Yes,
Yeah.
There are.
now they are. They weren't before, but now they.
But I know that there's the one at the skate park. Where else?
Energy Park.
Skate park, is the energy park one open more than Thursday? I don't think it is.
Yeah, we
I
had a
think-
We had a conversation with the mayor and she was to be sure they're unlocked.
Supposed to be unlocked all the time.
Yeah.
I haven't checked it though.
There's one at the dog park, pretty sure that's unlocked, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
And this,
So,
yeah, and it was also a question about the one at the skate park, which was locked for months, and inaccessible, and now is open in part because of folks in this group who approached the city and said, we need to open.
so I would recommend that you all keep checking those bathrooms because the one at the dog park, you could smell that 3 blocks away.
Oh.
And there is a tent encampment very close to that.
we know.
And that's the only place, other than in the river, that they have. And that place is vile. I mean, you wouldn't, wait, last summer it was. I don't know about this year. So I'm, like I'm 79. I have to pee a lot. And when I have to pee, I need to do it right then. That's not enough bathrooms for me.
And I will say that if we go back a little further, there was a porta potty over by the library during COVID kind of things. I used it.
Yeah.
Travelers used it. So then the issue became all the sharps. And then we were told there will be no porta potties in this area because of that. Larry and I were told that. Then we talked to the mayor, 3 of us did, and she was able to get the company to deliver the porta potties. When they're not emptied on a steady basis, that's a separate issue because I use porta potty. I'm like you, I have to go when I have to go. And I believe that this Portland Loo was locked up, but that's hugely expensive. And I believe that it's unlocked. Is it our job to run around and check for what's locked, what's unlocked? I think that remains to be seen. We can talk about that.
I'll do it.
We know we don't want them in the
I ride my
river,
bike.
Listy. We've already heard from Greenfield
And
that the river is a real problem for bathing, for defecating, for whatever. And, that's something that we are desperately working on. I'll just say that.
I would also posit that it is not our job, that would be the Department of Public Works, one would hope, right? That they're, especially the one that is like in the ground, right? The Portland Loo should be Department of Public Works, maintained, cleaned, checked on. Yeah, I think it would depend who is supplying the porta potties, right? Because if it's coming through city money, then it would make sense that it would be maintained by the city. But if there's some abdication of responsibility about whose job it is, then I can see that just falling off of everybody's plate and never getting cleaned.
So there's a person that cleans that Portland Loo one you're talking about in the skate park. I want to say they work for the city. I see them go there all the time. But I can also see that person getting totally frustrated because of some of the things that happen inside that. That's all I want to share.
So like, as we think about committee recommendations, I think that clarity of responsibility for public facilities that are available to unhoused folks would be a really, really important point for the city to like get clear on whose job this is and how often it's happening and whether they need 2 people and not 1,
It
right?
needs to be probably done 3 times, like at least twice a day,
Yeah.
not just
Yes.
once a week.
Right.
And I will say that just so the public knows this, I've heard about cameras over there at the Portland Loo. It's outside, and because there are drug activities possibly going on or some other kind of illegal thing. So nobody's watching anybody once you enter that Portland Loo, is my understanding. So I think people are like, oh my God, now there's cameras there. Well, if we need cameras there, there's a different reason. It's not because somebody's trying to watch somebody, for personal reasons. So I just want the public to know that, because I almost took my 7-year-old granddaughter there. There's no place to go downtown unless you can run into Pete's Market, and they don't bar you from that. But really, it's for the public to use, and that's why we spent beaucoup bucks on that one.
Yeah, I want to make sure everybody knows that the city cameras that are located at the skate park and by the Portland Loo cannot see inside the Portland Loo.
Right.
Like, I just want to be,
That's
I
my
just want to be
point.
very clear about that you are still afforded your privacy when using the city, publicly accessible bathrooms.
Thank you. Sorry.
So that's awesome that you're willing to check what's locked. Does someone want to follow up with DPW about the maintenance, or do we feel like it's, and the mayor?
Like say at Just Roots, there's a porta pot there and it has a regular schedule.
Yes.
And so if it is that the ones in town need to be checked by the company should come and do that. It should be part of that. And then if there's a lot of drug use, and I don't know how to deal with this, I do not know. But drug use is one issue, having to go to the bathroom is another issue. And each one of them has to be taken care of. And so to deny people going to the bathroom because of drugs doesn't seem right to me.
No, it's inhumane.
So I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, I'll call around the
Okay, thank you.
DPW companies.
Yeah, like, is it the porta potty company? Is it DPW? Like, what's the maintenance schedule? How often? That would be great to just find that info out. Thank you, Robin.
Thanks, Rob.
Amy, are you ready? Thanks for waiting.
Oh my gosh, it was helpful to hear that conversation. And Whiskey, thank you so much for sharing all of what you shared. That was really wonderful that you were so open, and it was helpful for me to hear. So I appreciated that. I feel like my update, this is a hard act to follow, but you all asked me here to offer updates on 2 things, lockers and the warming center. So I will start with lockers because it seems to dovetail off of Whiskey's, some of Whiskey's comments. We had also heard that lockers would be desired. I know the library has struggled because folks are leaving their belongings there and the library doesn't have the staff to watch them, but also doesn't have an alternative to offer. And this seemed like something that the city could take on to secure some lockers. So my department is tasked with finding the funding and coordinating that effort. I can give you an update on the funding that our most promising source is we are asking the state, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, to reallocate some CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant funds. We had a project that came in under budget. It was some sidewalk work that the DPW did. And so we're asking them to reallocate a portion of those unused funds to purchase and install some lockers. That isn't a guarantee because it's the state. They make you go through several hoops. So we are in the process of jumping through those hoops now, and we're hopeful that they'll allow us to do that reallocation. But it's not like I can just buy the lockers on Friday. There is a bit of a process. So while that process is going on, we've also applied for a private source of grant funds, and hopefully between those 2 sources, one of them will take us up on it. We got information from the city of Northampton in terms of where they sourced their lockers. Northampton worked with Mana, which is a nonprofit agency down there, and the lockers seem to have worked well there, at least in terms of size and shape and the way that they lock and all that sort of stuff. So that felt like a good model to follow in terms of what lockers to purchase. What we're still sorting out is location, management, and maintenance. We are looking at a couple of different locations that I'm just not ready to talk about yet because they involve some partners that I don't know if they'll be interested or able to help. And so I don't want to put them on blast and then have them say they can't do it and feel badly. But we are talking with some folks in the area and trying to think about different locations that are accessible 24 hours a day, that are sheltered from the elements, so that not only are your belongings outside, but that you don't have to stand outside in a thunderstorm to try and figure out the locker system. So places that are always accessible and provide a little bit of shelter when you are putting your belongings in and taking them out. And then that will work easily-ish for some service provider who we will ask to take over the sort of day-to-day logistics of the locker system. So handing out codes to folks, being responsible if somebody loses a code, if something needs to get rescheduled, or not rescheduled, reset, if somebody loses their code, something like that. And then maintenance and upkeep, we anticipate will likely be on the city, but depending on where the lockers are sited, there may be a different arrangement that makes sense. I think that's probably the lightest lift. The day-to-day management of them is probably the biggest ask. And I should say that the grant funds that we are looking for are not funds that could be used for that sort of compensation. They're funds that can be used for like a capital purchase of tangible stuff, but they don't cover someone's staff time. So we will still have to figure out how that gets paid for and what that looks like. So that's where we are in the lockers. I'm happy to stop there for a minute and answer questions if folks want to talk about lockers before I shift gears to warming center.
Hi, Amy. I have one. What was the name of the first grant that you were talking about?
Our primary hopeful grant source is community development block grants. It's CDBG funds.
Oh, no, that I have. But then I
The
think
other grant, you didn't catch it because I didn't name it, but I'm happy to. It's the Lowe's Hometown grant. If you look, it's Lowe's, like the Lowe's hardware store. They offer grants to municipalities and nonprofits, and those grants tend to be things aimed at improvements for community related things. A lot of it is improvements to spaces like food pantries or things like that. And so this felt like a similar enough project that it might fit in. And they basically provide you the funds to buy your stuff and make your improvements.
And are the grants written by Athena still?
Athena does write some of them. This one was written by me. Anna in my office writes the CDBG stuff. We're a team office. So one of us takes the lead and then the rest of us add extra eyes.
And then the second part is when you were talking about location, most of us are aware that people are eating either at Salvation Army or over on Arch Street. And, leaving belongings behind at Salvation Army and the warming center was another great big no-no. So I happened to be in the United Way building recently for a gentleman helping with tech issues. Used to be filled with diapers and diapers. And I don't know if that's a part of the Cheech and Chong building. So when you talk about various locations, I'm assuming people will be checking out what's close to where they eat, what's close to where they can use facilities, what's close to.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
We want it to be somewhere that when the library says, I'm sorry, you can't leave your things here, but there's a locker, that it doesn't require 2 bus rides and a, 15-minute hike. So the locations will be, the location I would imagine would be in the downtown core somewhere. There's just multiple options within that geographic area.
I have a question, Amy. Thinking about ongoing maintenance and staffing in terms of care for the lockers.
Mhm.
Is there consideration of working with local service centers so that it would be like potentially a service node, like where people could connect one-on-one with other service providers?
1,000%.
Making it like a rotating staff from a variety of different organizations. Is that already on your sort of mental list?
The folks that we are talking to are local service providers,
Awesome.
to manage it. That makes the most sense. This is a community that they already interact with. I certainly don't think it's helpful for me to insert like my department into trying to navigate this when there's a whole community of folks who are already doing this work. It's just a question of what entity or entities makes the most sense, and they have to tell me that.
Yeah, that was really my question is your plan or idea right now to work with just one, or are you considering like essentially creating a network of care around this location wherever it ends up? And the reason that I'm asking that is that we have started to hear from folks that there have been difficulties accessing services or having positive relationships with like one or another of particular service agencies in town.
Mhm.
And I wonder if this could be an opportunity to create some positive working relationships.
I am
Across-
happy to think
across
about that. I honestly just trying to get one entity to give me a thumbs up. I feel like I'm navigating a bunch there. And so I don't want to see it not happen because I'm trying to coordinate 15 different folks. But I do think your point is absolutely well taken. I'm aware of some of the tension, and so I will keep that in mind, and I'm happy to think about that notion of shared arrangement.
Also thinking logistically, it means that the lift for everybody is smaller.
Sure, absolutely. It just
Yeah. but
theoretically,
it's a
yes, it
lot.
could be smaller, but if you're trying to maintain, who's checking things in and out and codes and whatever, and then having to hand that off every month, I can see how that might get a little cumbersome. But again, I'm trying to rely on the expertise that's out there, and sort of fit into that as best as I can, as opposed to try and ask them to create some new thing. However, again, your point is super well taken.
Thank you.
I have a question, Amy, which is it helpful if we were to write like a letter of community support, or it's not really necessary or appropriate at this time?
No, I think for the state and reallocating the CDBG funds, I'll say two things. One is they need to make a determination that it's either an allowable use or not. And we could write all the letters in the world. That's just a determination they're making internally. So letters don't help there. However, we will have to have a public hearing. If you've been to any of our other community development public hearings for CDBG grants, we just come and share what it is that we're looking to do, and we welcome comments. And the state likes to see that because they like to make sure that we are sharing with the public the programs that we're doing. So I will happily let you all know when that public hearing is, and it would be great if folks wanted to show up to that to offer comment, even if the comment is, yes, this is a great idea, we're in support. It just helps us demonstrate to the state that we did talk to folks and gather feedback.
Did you have a question?
I have maybe a question, comment, suggestion. I don't know what it is. But, like I'm hearing these things like lockers, food, the bathrooms. And one of the things that it makes me think, that all those things make me think is, are there any tasks where the people who are being served could also participate in in the task, like be in the other role, the responsible role. So it's not just here I am receiving all these services and here you are giving them. Is there any way to integrate? I don't know what it is, but it would be to look, to really do almost like a task analysis of what's involved and what could be shared, get some other people in to say, well, here's how I could help with that. You know, really, in the unhoused community, you don't know the degrees that people have, the college degrees, you know, you don't know the backgrounds, where they could pitch in. You don't know where they would be willing, but people could communicate and really start.
What a great idea. I mean, I think, the participation is really valuable. And I think it's terrible. I mean, the way, this just happens, that you become the served and I'm the server when we need to break down that dichotomy. Yeah, that's great.
I kind of appreciate what everybody said here today. I really work really closely with a lot of the unhoused folks here in this community. I've been doing it for a number of years. I built those relationships you talk about. I sit outside with folks in the summer, the snow, the rain, whatever, it don't even matter. I'm outside pretty much every day talking with folks. So I built those same type of relationships you're talking about. And there's some folks that govern the community. I know who those folks are. I think the officer here knows who those folks are. There's some folks there's some strict rules in the community, within the community.
Yeah.
I know there was folks that so there was a project last year, in Green River Cemetery. Some folks made a big mess, and the Interfaith Council, I picked folks on Main Street, cleaned that up to the best of their ability. We took 50-something bags of contractor bags full of trash out of that spot, and wet mattresses that have been sitting out there and they were king-size mattresses too. That was folks off Main Street who did that.
Yeah, I believe it.
Those folks I picked up, I went, you want to help out? And they helped. And there's always folks that are willing to help, that hang out there. So I think that, some of the things that people are talking about here, some of those things are already in place. That idea we're having a spot where all the service agencies could be, there'll be a task force. We're talking about that for years. I'm a member of that. We've been talking about that for years. It's just this is a bunch of, I'm gonna say shit.
That's fine.
All
right.
to happen.
Yeah.
It's like releases. You'd have to have a universal release, because I used to be on the board of the directors for DMH here in Greenfield. So it's like you would have to have a universal release, and nobody's really trying to do that. So it's just a bunch of
Red tape.
BS.
yeah, it just stops a lot of the things that folks are talking about here.
Yeah. Systems over people.
And this
I'm
is
a pass with
not,
that.
yeah, and this is not the first time that we've talked about, we need the unhoused right at this table. We've brought it up many times. We're trying to be helpful about the very people that we feel should be at the table helping to make decisions. So it's just not city council, and it's just not the mayor thinking this, and I don't know how to get them here, Larry, but maybe we can work on it the next time we set a meeting, and we'll just fill this room with the very people that need to be here.
Who's about to make pizza?
Yeah, that's true.
That's right.
Oh, we needed food and folks are coming.
That's
I'm
right.
telling you.
Yeah.
That'd be great. We have 20 minutes, which
I'm
is
sorry.
unfortunate because we have to leave because there's lunch. No, this is all wonderful. But I'm thinking that we won't get to all of our agenda as it goes. But we should prioritize, in my mind, Amy speaking about the Warming Center and Pocky about the Human Rights Commission's interests while we have guests here. And then I think we could table the zoning and the update from Matthew Llewellyn, that conversation. And I think we've already approved moving forward with the survey, but you could just show us that there's a printed up flyer.
Yeah. I know that we have our hand raised.
And we do have a hand raised. Yeah.
I was going to say, Councilor Brown, I'm happy to answer a question from Stephanie, or Stephanie, you are always welcome to reach out to
Thank
me
you.
directly.
Yes. Stephanie, if you had a question for Amy, feel free to chime in, being aware of the time too.
Hi, Stephanie Duclos, Chapman Street. I did have a question.
I can't hear Stephanie.
Hold on, let me take, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you
Yes,
are. Yes.
that's better.
Okay. I do have concerns. That's because both of the homeless shelter and the warming shelter are all in my neighborhood, and I would not want to have, additional storage facilities or having CSO be involved in the part of the solution. Also, are we reallocating the Complete Streets grant money to this? Because I know that being part of that location of where the Complete Streets grants was supposed to cover, there was a certain section in, I'd say, upper part of Chapman that they didn't want sidewalks put in. So that money was then given back to Marlowe, but hoping, with the community that went and the abutters that went, that we were hoping that money would go to repair some of the other parts of Chapman Street that have not been addressed. So I would have to say that I'd be against a reallocation of the Complete Streets grant
Sure,
towards
I
this.
can put your mind at ease on that one. This is definitely not Complete Streets money. This is community development block grant money. And
I'm just curious also because I haven't been, I was supposed to be paid through an elder risk program grant,
mhm.
and I was never paid for that. So, and that's like $1,900. So if we're like depleting all the funds for some of the hoarding work and some of the homeless work that, and the elder
Yep.
outreach that I did,
Nope.
I
Nope,
haven't
has
been paid
nothing.
for that. So I'm hoping that we're not depleting all the money before, some of the people have been waiting for years to get paid.
No. So this has nothing to do with the Elders at Risk program either. That's separate CDBG funds. These are community development block grant funds that were for a sidewalk program that came in under budget, was completed, and there was a very small amount of money left over. The purchase of the lockers at most would be about $10,000, which in sidewalk funds would get you 3 inches. I don't like it. It's a very small amount. And because it's from an older community development block grant fund, it's on a very tight timeline that we need to spend it, compared to a timeline of a project like a sidewalk repair that would have to go out to bid and involve, contractors and the DPW and all of that. So it's just a quirky small dollar amount that we have to have left over at the same time as we have this sort of quirky physical need. And it would be a great match that wouldn't impact any existing program at all, and would allow us to just use up this little bit of community development block grant funding in a way that is
So
relatively
my other concern was having it put in my proximity. I'm already dealing with a lot of
Sure,
trash and abandoned I mean, we're not monitored over there, and
sure.
I was never given conveniences for protection in my neighborhood. So I am really concerned about where these lockers might be placed and what more inconvenience of my own property that I'm going to have to suffer. Not to disrespect the people that are homeless. I'm there feeding them. I'm out in the woods working with them. I know Larry, me and my partner go out and we do the work. We're actually
Sure.
on
And
the
I
ground
guess
doing the work. So
I
yeah.
hear you. And I respect that concern.
So
And I'll offer just 2 things. One, there are multiple locations on the table all over downtown. And 2, if this were to wind up at a location that was near you, my hope would be that it would help folks not have belongings outside, and you might find it easier, or they might find it
no,
easier
I
to
can
keep
tell
their
you
stuff.
right now, I've lived in this spot for 20 years, 21, 22 years.
Mhm.
Then it is noticeably increased. They are putting registered sex offenders in One Arch Place now. They're allowing them to register that place. And I have real safety concerns. So there's a
Okay.
lot of traffic all night long, and I don't sleep because of it. So I'm, if this is the location and CSO is trying to run this again, I will have
Stephanie,
to pursue this
yeah,
again. Thank you.
Sure. So Stephanie, what I would, in final response to that, this is the 2-second thing, is that when we get to that public hearing, that might be a great time for you to come back and hear. We should have at that point in time, I would think, a little more final plans, although not necessarily.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can we-
Warming center
Yes,
update.
warming
Can I
center.
pivot to that now?
Please.
So just trying to be mindful of time. I will make this very brief. The first thing that I'll put on so the way that we are hoping to roll this out is very similar to last year. The Salvation Army has offered up their space, as they did last time, for an overnight warming center. Same distinction as last year. This is a warming center and not an overnight shelter, because calling it a shelter and having beds triggers all sorts of code things that are just not feasible in that space. But it is a place where people come in and get warm overnight on those coldest of nights. We're having an internal city meeting on June 23rd. That is primarily for the city to all come together and make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of what we have the capacity to do on our end. Following that meeting, we'll be reaching out to stakeholders, folks who were at the shelter last year or at the warming center last year as guests, as volunteers, as people who were just involved in that outreach effort, to get feedback on how things went last year and ways that we can tighten up the process and make it run more smoothly for everybody involved. Some of that feedback we've gotten already from folks, but we can never have enough. And the only other thing I would add is that we are looking to do pre-season, I'll call it, training and orientation that will happen at the Salvation Army space itself. So that will be a chance for all volunteers or prospective volunteers to come in and learn about the volunteer experience while being in that actual space, so that it's not that the first time you see what's going on is when you show up at 1 o'clock in the morning for a shift. The other thing that we will be talking about at that June 23rd meeting is at the end of last season, the way that we scheduled the shifts were one volunteer and one person from the sheriff or the police department working together. That seemed to work well, but we also had grant funding last year that paid for that. We do not have that grant funding this year, at least as of now. So we are hoping to find a way to make that work, but right now we are working with a budget of $0. So again, we have grant applications out there and we are looking for things that could help us, but whereas it's a little easy to find things that will help with a physical thing like buying a locker, it is a lot harder to find something that will help with staffing a thing. So more to come on that. Just be aware that we are still looking for funding. But big picture, running roughly the same as last year.
Thank you.
Good work.
Yes.
Well, thank you to so many folks in this room that supported that effort in so many ways, from volunteering to just helping out. Happy to answer question 5 times.
I have a question, Amy. It's Pamela. When we were talking, especially from Wisty's viewpoint and those of us who did volunteer frequently over there, they do take care of each other. They help each other. We deal with anything and everything, those of us who spent time there. Toward the end, CSO shipped up Northampton and Amherst people that really disrupted this community and upset volunteers to the point where I guess certain people just didn't feel safe when you've got 18 men and 2 old ladies. I'm concerned that that will happen again. And I do want to say that I just investigated what happens in East Hampton. That was one of my outreach things. In East Hampton, there are no shelters. And they have a 4-page thing from Pamela Schwartz about the unhoused in Western Mass. And it says in big print on page 4, no shelters at all in East Hampton, 1 shelter in Northampton. Mm-hmm. So I feel just personally that the people they sent up here were so disrespectful. If you said, please whisper, people are sleeping, they're like, F you. And it was really enough where I don't want to go back unless we settle up on, we're going to deal as best as we can with the Greenfield community. We know there's transients. And I know that if we have hotel money, and we had a hotel, and they can stay in a hotel, they'd rather be in a hotel with their own bathroom. So that might be a separate issue on how to transport them to the Red Roof. And I know that Amy Clark, who came last time, has the funding for much of that. We just don't have a hotel. So that's my concern. And Northampton and Amherst have the money. They have a ton of things they could do down that way. But why ship them up to us when really we're struggling to just have the funding? As you said, we don't know how we're going to pay the police or the sheriff or anything.
So I could talk about this topic all day, and I'm trying to be conscious of time. I will just respond to say, A, I absolutely hear you. B, We have a monthly meeting where all of the cities and towns get together and talk about these exact issues, and talk about the capacity in each town and how we share information and share responsibility and cost. And so this is a topic that comes up and will absolutely come up again as the winter season approaches. And also, I would not myself, nor would I want to ask a volunteer, nor do I think it's really the right thing to do, to say to somebody that shows up and says, I'm cold and I need a place to go. Where are you from? I'm so sorry. If your answer is anything but Greenfield, you can't come in here. I think that things are going to get worse before they get better. And I think the better thing that we could do is to ensure the safety of everybody in the warming center and all of the staff who are volunteering, and do as much as we can to encourage and support and corral behavior that keeps everybody safe. And if that's more volunteers on each shift, then that's what we need to do, or a different layout or whatever. But I struggle with a scenario where we're turning somebody away at the door just because we think that they came from a different geographic area. If they're doing something that makes people feel unsafe and that is disrupting the entire community that's trying to stay warm and sleep, that's a different thing. But I struggle with the geographic thing, but I hear you, and I think that it's on us as a city to, when we're in those conversations with other municipalities, make sure that we're all stepping up, because it has to be a collective effort all around.
Right, and we do have a list of instructions. They only sign a first name. It's very anonymous. We never say, where'd you come from? That
Yes.
kind of thing. But, the instructions are, please follow this so that we can all be safe and we can all use the bathrooms and so forth. So I'm not looking to have anybody leave and then go be freezing to death either. I just think we need to have some kind of parameters and control.
Yeah, and I think that's on the city side and the service provider side, to make sure that we're clear in each community what the resources are, and that everybody knows what they are, and that they're being utilized to the best that they can be. And then we all just band together and take care of everybody. Thank you all.
Sure.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Amy.
Amy. When Councilor Perry also mentioned in the chat at the Domestic Violence Task Force meeting, Nelquit mentioned that the red roof is becoming more and more limited because of multi-agency usage. Just wanted to add that. Did you?
I have two very brief outreach updates, which I would like to give. One is that I will hold this up so that it is at least a little bit visible. Created a flyer. It's a half-page flyer, which means we can get more bang for our buck in terms of printing. There's a QR code on it, and it says, community survey. Do you live, stay, or access services in Greenfield? Are you unhoused or housing insecure? And then there's a QR code, and it says, please share your experiences. Your answers are anonymous. At the bottom, it says, the Unhoused Community Ad Hoc Committee is a subcommittee of the City Council. Our goal is to recommend how Greenfield can better support its unhoused residents. And the QR code links to the survey that we've discussed in previous meetings. And hopefully, I hear this already coming from most of the people who spoke today, but we have to remember that this is a compounded problem, and that the experience of being unhoused is one that is neither easy to get out of nor easy to manage while you're in it. And that the experience of trying to access services while you are also housing insecure is particularly difficult. So this survey is really to get folks to share their experiences with accessing services in Greenfield, what kinds of services they do access or they want to access and can't, and what they think about how Greenfield is doing, which I'm particularly interested in, that T. And so,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
what's that? So what's the QR? What's
so
that?
a QR code means that
I
anyone,
don't think a lot of people, I know a lot of people I serve don't know what that is.
anyone with a smartphone,
Okay.
a phone with a camera, can scan this code, and it will bring them to a website that has the survey. It brings them directly there. So they hold their camera up, a little button pops up, they click the button, and it brings them to the survey. So it's a really easy way for people with smartphone technology to access. My thought is that these can get posted all over town, and that we can be doing in-person interviews at things like the library or maybe at the energy park. So this is not the only way that I want people to access the survey, but it's a really easy way for people with smartphones to get to it and do it anonymously without actually having to come face to face. So as many access avenues as possible.
At the meeting, can I
I'm
show you?
wondering
It's-
if it would be helpful
I
not
show you
just
how to do it after
to
the meeting.
have the QR code, but to also say like it's a www dot and then kind of like a
Mm.
shortened URL that they could also put in if they don't understand that you would scan it.
Yeah, that's a good
Good
point.
idea.
I can modify it so it says scan me, but then also has a shortened URL so that it's easy to type in if people would like to do
Can I
that.
borrow it? Can I borrow that after the meeting?
I know how to do it. I know how to do it, but I know folks that don't want.
Never
I
mind.
know.
You don't need the lesson.
You faked
He
me
asked
out.
the rhetorical question for the audience. Yes, yeah.
To be clear though.
I saw what you were doing.
Is an option, right? I
Yeah.
thought that's gonna be at the library and
Yeah.
a few other places.
Yes, so this is a flyer. This is designed to go up and stay up somewhere where people come through. Like Greenfields Market in the eating area, perhaps. But there are other ways that we can and will implement the survey. This is just the really lazy version for us, where we don't have to do anything else. And then the second update is that Robin and I went and canvassed, surveyed at the Days Inn,
Oh.
which is currently, the answer essentially was, it is currently under construction. It will be becoming a Marriott offshoot hotel.
Oh, no.
And I was in contact with somebody who is still living at the Days Inn and is in touch with the people who are doing the construction. I'm hoping that I can keep being in touch with them and that we as a committee can ultimately be back in communication with the people running the hotel so that we can talk about the option of continuing to use part of that building for vouchers.
When should we meet next?
Yes, we do need to go to figure out next meeting. And also I did want to hear from Pocky before we wrap up. Just, I know we're pushing the time a little bit. We are. We should never have an hour meeting. Let's
I just say this quickly. I'm on the Human Rights Commission, and this year our big task is to work on ending homelessness with you. And since we were in our little silos, I got an invitation from Pamela to come to represent the Human Rights Commission. And when we meet next, I'll give them a report about what you're doing so we can better collaborate.
Thank
So
you for
we're
being
here.
here.
And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Cool. Next meeting, we could be tomorrow, just kidding. Friends. We'll choose another time. Do we want to go back to the Thursday or stay on Fridays?
Can we go back to Thursday, please?
Let's go back to Thursday.
Thursday's nice.
Thursday, the 19th is 2 weeks if we kept up. Oh, that's Juneteenth.
It is Juneteenth.
That's Juneteenth.
Maybe we could do,
I do Friday the 20th. Just said that.
Now, how about the next?
I could do Friday, the 20th in the morning, or I could do Thursday, the 26th. Do people like Thursday, the 26th? It is 3 weeks and we have so much to talk about, but that's okay. Yep. Thursday, 26th.
I think I'm away that day. On the Friday I could do, but
I'm away on that Friday, so.
I,
Do we want to?
Yeah, pick your favorite, yeah.
I like that.
Be able to join us on Zoom, or are you away and not?
I'm out camping, so I'm hoping to take a break, so.
That seems
It's okay. I'll send them my ideas to Sarah if I have, the Llewellyn report.
Yeah, I wanted to get that, but hopefully maybe you could report on that too.
But I think it's important to say, out of that going to the campsites, in general, this is what Officer Llewellyn said, is like, we're talking like maybe 20 people. So it's not huge that are in the campsite. So of course, that's not people on couches, that's not people. There's one campsite where there might be 5 people there. And so we walked into that when we walked into the larger number of tents on the other side of the dog park. And nobody was home and they were all here on the common because it was probably getting to be lunchtime. And so they were here. There's a lot of picking up to do that I would love to talk more about how I don't think the DPW is going to be rushing in there to do it anytime soon. if we could get a task force going together of volunteers and trash bags, there's stuff to get hauled out, including really abandoned, good-looking tents that could be dried out and reused.
Right.
That's my impression. I mean, some of them are not destroyed.
So are we, just to finish up choosing the date, 10 a.m., 10:30, 11 a.m., do people care?
July 26th.
Yeah,
June.
June
Oh, she's right, 26th.
10 to 11:30.
10 to 11:30 work for folks?
Yeah.
Awesome. I will ask Tammy if that room can be booked, and then we will finish up the rest of this agenda and have more of like a zoning ordinances, police themed time.
Since we're 3 weeks out, can I move that I adjust this and send it out to the committee and we can flyer?
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Okay. Great. And can you, do we have an end date on when you would like to be finished with the survey so you have time to do so?
Not right
It's just open-ended right
Yeah,
now.
I think right now, just having it be up and we can revisit that question later, I think.
Sure. Cool.
Okay, so if you all really did want to have a meeting with a bunch of people who are on the street and stuff, how would that be organized? Like, I mean,
I think there are a variety of ways, and that's a better question for another meeting, just because we're out of time. But one of the purposes of the survey is that even if folks are not in the room, their stories and voices can be. So that's one piece, but also I would love that to be on our agenda for the next meeting, is like, now that we're in the heat of summer, how can we maybe get together and bring people into this conversation?
Yeah, well, can we even informally invite people you talk to on a regular basis, invite them to join us at this meeting?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an open meeting.
Start.
Yeah. Well, and we do have representation on this committee as well. So I want to be clear that,
Yeah,
that
that's-
although that individual wasn't able to join us today, that, we are not ignoring their voices.
We do have a next meeting booked, so
Yeah, and I would suggest at least 2 people. I hate to have the token.
Oh, sure.
Good, thank you. All right,
Thank
let's
you.
wrap it up. The meeting is adjourned at.
move to adjourn.
Okay, sorry, yes, I already did this last time. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, everybody, public work, yeah, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us.
Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Wid, all you people on Zoom.